Karen demands VIP table, claiming to know the owner. But I'm the owner, and she was left crying with a $4,000 bill after my revenge. I still remember the day I signed the lease on that old brick building, a roster of yellowed flyers plastered across the battered door, promising job fairs and garage sales long past. Fresh out of college, no more than a hopeful grad with a hospitality degree and a head full of dreams. I convinced a group of skeptical investors that my vision would transform that derelict space into the city's most talked about lounge. I traded my savings, my parents' cosign on the loan, and I worked 16-hour days alongside my first bartender, James, sanding down bar stools, painting murals, and coaxing the first few customers in with stories rather than cocktails. I learned to mix every drink from scratch, to read the slightest shift in a patron's posture, to turn a bad day into a good memory with a single empathetic word. By the end of that long, exhausting year, the Velvet Rope was no longer a gamble. It was a gathering place for artists, executives, and wanderers, all seeking something beyond the typical nightclub. Over the next 2 years, I fought zoning disputes, weathered economic dips, and personally trained every member of my staff, imparting James's lessons on genuine hospitality. We sourced local art exhibits, hosted jazz nights, and built our reputation on respect and experience. By year 3, the chain-smoking gossip columns proclaimed the Velvet Rope the hottest ticket in town, proof that grit and sincerity could elevate even the humblest beginnings into something extraordinary. Tonight, though, took me back farther than the warehouse floor. When my head of security burst in with a live feed showing Ms. Carter's entourage, 3 more women equally coiffed and dissatisfied, each sneering as they whispered critiques. We were in full swing past midnight. They'd cornered James at the bar first. "Excuse me," Ms. Carter had snapped, lips pressed in a tight line. "I asked for a pomegranate royale with absolute precision. This tastes like watered-down pink lemonade." James, cool as ever, slid her a fresh glass before she finished. One of her companions muttered, "Do you see what we tolerate here? You wouldn't last a week as an actual owner." Another Karen elbowed her friend and hissed, "He's probably just a junior manager playing dress-up." Their laughter grated against the scene. I felt my chest tighten. I slipped downstairs, catching James mid-replacement. "Handled," he whispered, nodding toward the Karen clan clustered near the bar. "They want a VIP booth." I took the reins. "Good evening," I said, voice steady. "What can I do for you tonight?" They flinched, sharing surprised glances. "You," Miss Carter hissed, "we've been looking all night for the owner. And here you are. We demand a private table twice as good as that 1 inch." She pointed at an occupied booth, "and free champagne." Her cohorts snickered behind her, detailing in snotty tones how my little bar wasn't fit for ladies of their caliber. I smiled, folding in my memory of James teaching me to stay cool under pressure. "Absolutely," I replied. "I'll just need you to fill out this VIP form." I produced the sleek tablet. They scoffed. One asked, "A form? Really?" Another chirped, "What is this? Amateur hour?" Their contempt was almost satisfying. They took turns typing their details, rolling their eyes as they signed the flat $4,000 fee for the Velvet Room. Meanwhile, James hovered with a silver tray of signature cocktails, each drink placed with the precision I'd taught him, despite their earlier disdain. Once their signatures glowed on the screen, Emily led them past the Velvet Rope into the Velvet Room. I watched as their designer heels clicked over the plush carpet, their expressions shifting from scorn to curiosity under the soft lights. Lucas, our head bartender, presented the charcuterie board and champagne. They exchanged furtive looks as the first bubbles touched their lips. Back at the bar, I gave James and the other servers a nod. Maintain flawless service, no slip-ups. Outside, the valet team had prepared the final touch, a Lamborghini parked under the VIP sign, billed to their tab. I re-entered the room just as the snide leader glanced at the check for $1,200. The room stilled. Their collective gaze sharpened as they passed the check around, each woman scrutinizing the tiny print. One of Ms. Carter's friends snatched the bill from the server, voice trembling with indignation. "This is outrageous. We're calling the police." Another hissed, "We demand to speak to the manager and every authority we can find." Phones emerged, fingers hovered over dialers, and murmurs of fraud and unfair practices rippled through the Velvet Room. Tables rattled as they slammed the check down, their high heels echoing in the tense silence. "What's this?" she demanded, voice wavering. I clear my throat. "You requested the top-tier experience. The Velvet Room is $4,000 for full privacy and service. The $200 covers valet prestige and car concierge you sign off on." She reached for her Amex and froze as it declined. Silence. Her friends paled next to her. Seconds later, the door burst open to reveal a tall man in a designer suit, Miss Carter's husband, his tie undone, cheeks flushed with panic. I watched as he scanned the Velvet Room, eyes darting from his wife's tear-stained face to the stunned expressions of her friends. He genuinely looked out of place among the velvet seats and low lighting, like a missing puzzle piece forced into the frame. He strode forward, voice thick with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, everyone," he began, glancing at the check for the first time. "I handle the finances. I thought I had wired the funds earlier." He ran a hand through his hair, knocking cotton fibers loose. "It appears my office didn't process the transfer in time." His admission hung in the room, a confession of privilege undone by oversight. One of the Karens sniffed. "Well, perhaps you shouldn't flaunt wealth you can't manage." His jaw clenched, but he bit back a retort when his card declined the second attempt. The reader flashed insufficient funds again. I stepped closer and lowered my voice, so only they could hear, "Sir, I understand how it looks. You two planned a grand entrance, but life has its own timeline." He exhaled, shoulders slumping as he pulled a stake of cash from his pocket, fanned out bills, and then visibly hesitated. The stack was smaller than the bill. My heart sank. The spectacle had gone further than I'd ever planned. He cleared his throat and turned to his wife. In that moment, I saw something shift in her eyes. Regret, vulnerability, a shared realization that status meant nothing without sincerity. She reached across the marble tabletop, taking his hand and whispering words I couldn't catch. He nodded, sliding the dwindling stack toward me. I gently placed a hand atop their joined hands and said, "You two have had a night of extremes. Let me handle the rest. Champagne is a gesture of goodwill, but I asked for that one round it cost, $200. The rest is on me." A tremor of disbelief ran through both of them. The husband's tension melted into relief. The wife's shock gave way to gratitude. Her friends exhaled, some wiping tears, muttering apologies. The husband offered a stiff nod toward me, then laid the bills down. When a server collected them, the room seemed to breathe again. They rose to leave, the husband supporting his wife as she steadied herself. He paused at the door, turning back to me. "Thank you," he said quietly, sincerity replacing the night's earlier bluster. As they stepped out, the murmurs began anew. This time, not of mockery, but of respect for the unexpected civility shown by the man they tried to undermine. In the aftermath, my phone buzzed with notifications. Videos of their arrival and departure had circulated online, comments marveling at how a simple moment of empathy had upended a night of entitlement. That morning, reservation requests poured in for the Velvet Room. But now each inquiry carried a sense of humility, people hoping to experience the warmth behind the velvet rope rather than exploit it. And as I prepared for another evening, I remembered that sometimes the truest measure of success isn't the size of a check, but the grace with which you handle its crumpled receipt. Relief and shame washed over them in equal measure.